Congratulations, you've just found the #1 over 50 health and wellness podcast on the planet. Hello and welcome to the Over 50 Health and Wellness Show. I'm your host, Kevin English. I'm a healthy aging expert and the founder of The Silver Edge, and I am on a mission to help men and women just like you build lean, strong, healthy, amazing, capable bodies they'd love for the rest of their lives. All right, beautiful people, let's go. This is going to be a fun episode, and we're going to nerd out just a little bit here, so bear with me. If you've ever wondered why we age and what's actually happening inside your cells and whether it's possible not just to live longer, but to live better, then you are going to love this conversation. Because today I'm sitting down with a guy who lives right at the intersection of cutting edge science and real world longevity. So my guest today is Chris Burres. He is a research engineer, founder. He's the chief scientist of a company called MyVitalC. He's the host of the Live Beyond the Norms podcast, and he's the author of the book Live Longer Better. Now, Chris's work focuses on helping people improve energy, reduce inflammation, and fight the effects of aging at the cellular level, primarily by targeting oxidative stress and mitochondrial function. And if that sounds just a little bit nerdy, bear with me, because here's where things get really interesting. Chris is working with a molecule connected to a Nobel Prize-winning discovery, one that in animal studies has shown some of the most dramatic longevity results ever recorded in human history. So yeah, we're going to go there today. So in this episode, we're going to break down what's really happening in your body as you age, what oxidative stress and mitochondria really mean in actual plain English, and what science is starting to reveal about how we can extend our lifespan as well as our health span. So people, whip up your protein smoothies, maybe even add a few ESS60 molecules in there, and let's meet Chris.
As we're kind of leading into this, you said this was going to be a fun podcast. I will do my best to make sure this is a fun podcast.
Now, we've set the bar pretty high. Now we got to live up to it, right?
Yes.
All right, let's go, man. Let's start here. Before we start geeking out, because I want to nerd out on all the things here. But before we get there, how did you first become interested in longevity and molecules and science? Were you always a nerd? What's your story? How'd you get here?
You know, I guess the one thing that I kind of grabbed onto that was I always a nerd. I think the answer is yes. Like I always was a nerd. My dad was not very mechanical, but I was always the kid kind of running around and like pulling off the light sockets and taking things apart. And then, you know, magically they would work when I put them back together. I swear most of the time I didn't make any changes. I just like took it apart, put it back together and it would work. So just the fact that it worked after I put it back together was pretty powerful. What kind of got me here in the longevity, you know, a lot of people in this space have a pain to passion story, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of envious of that pain to passion story. And then also not, because I don't have the pain, but I do have the passion. And,
right on.
And where my story kind of started was I was a 14-year-old kid with a Lamborghini Countach on my wall, a poster of a Lamborghini Countach. Right, you may remember these. Bright red, the gull-wing doors were open. Yeah. I could smell the leather. I wanted one of these. And I found an article, which sounds trivial now, but there was no internet, right? So I somehow found an article. If you want to get a supercar, if you want one supercar, become a neurosurgeon. If you want more than one, you should become an entrepreneur. So I'm a 14-year-old kid. Why would you have one? Like, this is a simple, like, I'm just deciding, do I want to be a neurosurgeon or an entrepreneur? Like,
easy decision, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No intelligence going into this decision. And so I knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. When it came time to go to college, you know, I wrote a book actually called Live Longer and Better. And a lot of the story is in there. When I researched for the book, my options when I started going to college, thinking about being an entrepreneur, people were like, well, maybe you should have studied entrepreneurship. But when I graduated from high school, there was only one course, not like a whole program, one course in the entire country. Now there's courses all over the place, right? Like or whole programs. And honestly, if I were to do it all again in today, I probably would do it still the same way, because my logic was, I'm good in math, I'm good in science. What's the fastest way to the highest salary? So I would have an income, so I would have money to invest in a business to become an entrepreneur. And a couple things went wrong with that story. First, engineering is hard. It took me 6 years, not 4 years. I did also get a minor in computer science and math. And the other thing that went wrong is I actually ended up starting the company before I even graduated and started earning the salary. My business partner, Robert, was working on the University of Houston campus, so go Cougs, that's where I graduated from. And he was working separating this newly discovered molecule that we'll be talking about today. And one day his professor, Professor Paul Chu, super famous in the superconductivity space. I know you guys and your audience has never heard of him. The building on the University of Houston campus, we called it Chu's Castle because it was Dr. Chu's superconductivity fame that got this building built. And so Robert was working in there separating this material. Dr. Chu comes in and says, hey, you guys are a bunch of young kids. This molecule is selling for $6,000 a gram. You should figure out how to make it and then start a business. And my business partner, Robert, is from an entrepreneurial background. I joke that he did a back of the napkin calculation, which was really only one line, $6,000 a gram, and that was it.
That's all you need. Let's go. We could build a business on that, right?
Go.
Yeah.
And so he started building the equipment. Now, it turns out in order to make this molecule, you have to vaporize graphite in an inert environment at a reduced pressure. So vacuum chamber, no oxygen, vaporizing graphite. By the way, graphite is one of the hardest materials on the planet to vaporize. You actually need local temperatures of the sun to vaporize graphite. So they brought me as the mechanical engineer to help with the design. How do we manage all this heat? How do we do drawings so that we can get this equipment made? And that's how we ended up starting this carbon nanomaterial manufacturing business focused on this molecule that we call ESS60. Just a little bit about that molecule. So I'm holding up a model of the molecule if you're listening, because it's a podcast. Imagine a soccer ball where the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. So you have a spherical molecule of 60 carbon atoms. The molecule was discovered in 1985. The scientists who discovered it won the Nobel Prize in 1996. Our lab started manufacturing it because of that. You young kids should start a company in 1991, a full 5 years before they were awarded the Nobel Prize. And that's kind of the brief. Now, I've gotten you to the point of chief scientist of a carbon nanomaterial manufacturing business. There's lots to go, but I've been talking a while, so let me make sure that, if you've got any questions, I can address
All
those.
right. No, I'm tracking with you. So it sounds like you were just kind of on this trajectory. I love that your first motivation wasn't, it was, hey, I want to
rescuing my mother
no,
or saving,
no. I want a fleet of
liver.
Lamborghinis. Let's be real. All right. And maybe towards the end, I'm going to ask you whether you have a fleet of Lamborghinis now. But before we get there, so you obviously are a pretty techie guy, it sounds like. And you're an entrepreneur. You've built this company. We're going to dive into this carbon 60 and this the ESS60 molecule. Yep. But before we get there, let's just back up, because obviously where we're going to go is we're going to talk a lot about, I suspect, maybe inflammation and antioxidants and longevity, etc., and extending our life. I've read some of your thoughts there on how long can we live. So I want to start with a really simple, or maybe not so simple question. Why do we age? What's happening in my body? I'm going to be, by the time this comes out, I'll be 62. What's happening to me? Why can't I live to be 200 or 300? Is there a one or limiting set of maybe cellular or some kind of functions that we just haven't figured out a way around? What's happening there?
Well, first, look great, right?
Yeah, right on. That's what we're all about here. Yeah.
You're doing a bunch of good stuff. If you're just listening to this podcast, you've never seen him. He looks like he's 30.
Right on. Yeah, I feel like it.
No, he looks amazing. And the question about what causes aging, I can jump into that from like the medical perspective. I think let's go with the kind of more exciting answer, which is there is this thing called the longevity escape velocity, right? And the concept is, for every year that passes, when the medical community, because I think it's a win, when the medical community can extend human life by 1 year in 1 day every year, right? So they're eclipsing the time that's passing with the amount of time that they're extending life. At some point, there will be somebody who is the last person to die of natural causes. And I think the message that I would give is don't be that last person, right? It would suck to be the last person to die. Well, I mean, he might not know, right? Like he doesn't know that he was the last person to die, but do whatever you can to get across this longevity escape velocity, finish line, right? On the right side of the finish line. Now, like Chris, that's crazy. You're talking about at some point people living forever. And I have a podcast called Live Beyond the Norms. And in that podcast, I asked everyone, how long do you intend to live and how long do you think humans can live? And the amount of people who give the same number is basically zero, because we have this inability to separate living longer from living from in some state of infirmment, right? To be debilitated in some way. And I'm going to encourage you to start changing how you think about that. The way I would answer the question, how long can humans live? Today, with what we have in place, right? I think it's about 120, right? My goal is 125. It's been 125 since I was like, I want one of those Lamborghinis. Also, I'm going to live to 125. like it's about that time frame. And I don't know where the number came from. And if I'm honest, 125 wasn't going to look pretty, right? It's like this marine crawl. You got to roll that last little.
Right.
120. I made it. Done. And that has changed. So I think 120 is the answer today. But I think really quickly the answer is going to be a lot longer, and then I think eventually not dying of natural causes. Here's the piece of data that I use to really support this. So in 1950, medical information doubled every 50 years, every 50 years. When I started talking about this kind of piece, about this, how quickly is medical information growing, was the beginning of 2025. And at the time, medical information was doubling every 3 months, right? So it's probably faster now. What that means, if that number still holds, is at the end of 2026, we're going to have 16 times more medical information at our disposal at the end of 2026 than we had at the beginning. And then that doesn't really take into account AI. I don't think AI helps us write. It helps us write papers a little bit faster, but that's not the big benefit. I think the big benefit of AI is to be able to, so every day genius scientists wake up and they're like, there's 100 experiments that I could get my grad student to do, right? Like in the case of academia. And I'm going to have them I'm going to narrow it down to these 3, and then he or she's going to select the one that they like to do, and then we're going to go down that path. I think AI, the value is that it can look at the data and go, you know what, don't do that experiment. Because that actually probably do this experiment, because not only is it likely to succeed in the context of your framework, it also is probably going to have these other benefits when you really boil it down. So now, not only are we doubling information every 3 months and or faster, the quality of the research that's coming out is better because more data processing, more information processing has happened before they even started the experiment. So that's my kind of maybe potentially controversial answer.
I absolutely love that. Yeah. So I'd love the idea that if we can increase lifespan 1.5 times lifespan, right? So that we don't want to be that last person to die of natural causes. And then what'd you call it? You called it longevity escape velocity. Just wonderful language in there and a way of thinking about longevity. And of course, on this show, we've talked about lifespan and health span. And you had alluded to that. You said, hey, I was, originally maybe I was thinking of 120 where I'm just crawling across the finish line as this decrepit old man. But I suspect that's not your thinking now. This is the idea that you are healthy and vibrant and then at 120 checking out. But now, if it holds that every 3 months medical information is doubling and we have AI that can maybe help synthesize this tremendous amount of information, you actually see a day where we could defeat biological aging as we know it. So, okay, that changes everything, right?
And now we can end the podcast. I think
we're done. Yeah, everyone's going to live forever. That's right. No. Well, because it makes me think, right? At 62, I'm either right here at the end, right? The average life expectancy is 78 or something. I'm a healthy dude, so for me, it's more, but it's not 120, 150, 200, right? But
Well,
if I,
I think it could be in the
it
hundreds,
could
right?
be in
Like
the hundreds.
you do
Yeah.
the right things
Right.
with where we're at today, and this is what you can kind of talk about on a regular basis, doing the right things with what we have today. I think over 100 is absolutely on the table.
For everybody in this age demographic,
I mean, if you're doing the right
if you're
things,
doing
right?
the right
Like if
thing
you're
with that
sitting
caveat. Yeah.
on your couch eating bonbons watching the NFL, yeah,
It's going to be
you're
tough.
not going to make it to 100.
Not
I
going to
mean,
make it. Yeah.
every now and then the odd person who smokes, they
Sure.
say Jean Clement, and there's absolute debate about whether she traded places with her daughter, and so did she live to 122? But she still was elderly, and she quit smoking because her eyesight was so bad she couldn't continue to light her cigarette, right? Like,
Yeah. Right. There's
so yeah, if there may be the odd case like, yeah, my dad ate 3 pounds of bacon, smoked, and had 3 bourbons every night. Every now and then somebody's got the lucky genes, but other outside of that, like you can take the right strategies for nutrition, exercise / movement, focusing on sleep, which I'm sure are all things you talk about.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
I think you can get to 100.
Let's go, people. All right. So our goal is for those of you out there that are already doing the right things, right? Let's get you to 100. Now let's change the conversation. Let's talk about what it takes to get to 120. So that brings us back to, you seem to be passionate about longevity. You seem to be passionate about this crazy, geeky carbon 60 thing that what did you tell me? You said you were vaporizing graphite and you had to draw up schematics so that somebody would make you a machine that would allow you to do this.
Yeah.
Talk to us.
They were really making the parts of the machine. We put the machine together. And by the way, that design is still the most efficient way to manufacture this molecule on the planet, right? So that is still what is used today.
All right. So help us draw the dots then from this longevity quest to this molecule you're fascinated with. What's its role when it comes to longevity, health, and how did you discover this? And why should we care? Why should a listener care about something as geeky as carbon 60?
So I'm going to share a little bit of the story because I think it's fun, and we promised fun. So, and I'll tell you, the first part of the story is not good. It's going to be a little scary, right? So the reason those 3 scientists won the Nobel Prize is because this molecule, it performs as well or better than the current best material. So did I describe this molecule already?
You did, yeah. The soccer ball.
Cool.
Yeah, and those of you on YouTube see it. Those of you that don't, it does look similar to a soccer ball. It's got those 60 little carbon atoms, and it's a perfect sphere. Yep.
Yes. So this molecule, the reason they won the Nobel Prize is because this molecule performs as well or better than the current best material in almost every application. So it makes better inks, better batteries, better tires, better photocells. And this is where people get nervous. We're like, this is good, the health. We're talking about longevity, escape velocity.
Yeah.
And he said ink, batteries, tires, and photocells. Nobody in your audience woke up, looked at their car, and thought, I wonder what part of my car battery I should be taking on a daily basis for my health. By the way, none. Just the spoiler alert, none. So that's how they ended up winning the Nobel Prize. And the story gets a little worse first because on the exterior of this cage is one shape that is the same shape as benzene. Now, it's a different chemical formula, but it's the same shape. Now, benzene is ubiquitous in our society. We don't have modern society without benzene. Let me offer up some evidence. If you glance around you and imagine everything that's plastic gone, its foundational molecule is the benzene ring. Many medications have the foundational molecule of benzene, including aspirin. So it's everywhere and it's necessary for modern society. But when benzene is on its own, it's known to be toxic and known to be carcinogenic. So because that shape occurs 20 times on the exterior of this ESS60 molecule, they thought it would be toxic. They put it in a toxicity study, and instead of being toxic, the test subjects that they gave it to, in this case Wistar rats, lived 90% longer than the control group. So the single longest longevity experimental result on mammals in history, peer-reviewed, published research, is because of this ESS60 molecule dissolved in olive oil. I'm very proud to share our lab provided the material. Our lab is mentioned in that original study. Now, this created a cascade, a very fun journey, which was that study came out in mid-2012. By mid-2013, we start getting phone calls from this crazy, wacky group of people called biohackers. And I can say that affectionately now because I am a biohacker. And they were like, how much should we take? And my business partner and I, Robert, conservative carbon nanomaterial scientists, were like, well, you mean that stuff that we sell to scientists around the world for inks, batteries, tires, and photocells? We think you should take 0. We actually added not for human consumption to the labeling in mid-2013. And
so, hang on, let me just jump in here real quick, point of clarification. So these crazy biohackers then, they got their hands on that research, I assume, saw that you were somebody was extending a rat's life by 90%. That is very significant. And they're like, huh. Meanwhile, you guys are scientists. You're like, whoa, hang on. We wait a minute.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to get that clear. Okay. So these guys are like, how much should we take? Right. Because they're,
No.
Right,
they were already taking it.
They were
should I take more?
already taking it. Yeah. Right. I want to know what the upper limit dose is for maximum effectiveness here. Yeah.
Exactly. So we add not for human consumption to our labeling, and we're getting 2 to 3 phone calls a week from this crazy, wacky group of biohackers. And it sounds something like this. Hey, Chris, I have to share my knee pain is gone. And I'm like, Joe, you mean the knee pain of your rat? Because it literally says not for human consumption on the labeling. And Joe was like, yeah. Hey, if my rat weighs 275 pounds and does HIIT training on Wednesdays and Fridays, should my rat take? So we knew what was going on. And because in the literature it was clear it was safe, we continued to allow it to continue. And every quarter, literally in the conference room that's right behind me, my business partner Robert and I would get together and we're like, do we want to get into the supplement industry? And the way I think it's generous to say that the supplement industry is challenged, right? It's a challenged industry and certainly very different than us delivering commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials to research institutions around the world. So every quarter we're saying, no, we don't want to get into this challenged industry. It's not for us. It's not, it doesn't feel right with the scientific integrity that we've been operating for so long. And then in the middle of this, I find a peer-reviewed published research paper that showed that 50% of the supplements this research group had purchased on the market didn't have in them what they said they had in them, right? So more evidence, challenged, we don't want to be in this space. Finally, at the latter part of 2017, a guy with a big YouTube following, that's how everything changes these days, right? Starts talking about all the benefits he's getting, taking it on a daily basis. And our phone went from ringing 2 to 3 times a week to 10 times a day. And then at that point, at that quarterly meeting with Robert, we're like, okay, this is an opportunity bigger than we realized. Maybe we should have been smarter. And we looked back to that paper, right, where 50% of the supplements on the market don't have in them what they say they have in them. We're the oldest and longest manufacturer and distributor of this molecule on the planet. We've got the research equipment. We've been delivering this high quality product for so long to research institutions. We probably should get into this industry and really just to offer a safe, right, uncompromised option, right? So at that point, we asked ourselves 2 questions. Now, the first question for us was a moral question. Are we comfortable selling it? I take it, my wife takes it, everybody on our team here takes it. By the way, that is not a requirement.
Okay, not a requirement for employment? Okay.
You don't clock in and take this dystopian line and take your MyVital C and get to work. It really everyone here takes it, I think, because one, they have access to the literature like anyone else, but they also have really close access to all the amazing testimonials that are coming in. So yes, morally comfortable selling it. The next is legal, right? So the FDA and the FTC, you got to cross the T's, you got to dot the I's, and so then we were off bringing this product to market. And this is kind of where my role, well, definitely where my role changed from being the chief scientist of a carbon nanomaterial manufacturing business to being the chief scientist of a health and wellness business. And I just kind of rolled up my sleeves. First thing I got to figure out, why do we say, how do we say this is working? This seems to be working, right? Joe's, having a positive experience. The Wistar rats lived longer. And our most consistent testimonial is people take the product in the morning, they report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. If you improve sleep, you will improve your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. So that's kind of the first place.
There you go.
And then from longevity, these rats live 90% longer. Why might that be? I looked at the medical community and tried to understand how they think about aging. And they don't all agree, but they tend to think of it as an oxidation and an inflammation process, right? And I'm sure you talk about oxidation and inflammation on a regular basis, as do I. Now, in terms of antioxidant, there's an ad hoc study on the web showing us to be 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. There's peer-reviewed published research showing us to be 125 times more powerful than vitamin C. So I'm in Houston, Texas. We put a big old check mark next to antioxidant. When it comes to inflammation, we have to be really careful because the FDA has equated conversations of inflammation with the diseases of inflammation, which are also the diseases of aging. So arthritis, Alzheimer's, cardiovascular disease, cancers. So if I come on your show and I say, hey, we address inflammation, the FDA hears me claiming we cure cancer, we cure cardiovascular disease. We are not claiming that. There is so much research that would need to go into that particular area, right? Clinical trials, super expensive research in order for us to be able to claim that. What the FDA does allow us to say is we address inflammation as it relates to exercise-induced inflammation. So we've all had a tough workout, maybe just walked farther than normal, and we felt that inflammation in our body. The FDA allows us to say that we address that type of inflammation. So that was kind of the second. I can dig deep. I don't know if I might have brought up some questions. I can dig deep into the current theory.
Yeah. So, all right. No, I love where we're going here. So here's my question is, all right. So we have this molecule. It seems to be producing these results that are positive results. We know that we have this animal study that's just this dramatic result, which is how it got into humans in the first place. You had mentioned specifically antioxidant and oxidative stress. You mentioned inflammation. What's this molecule doing? Is it like changing my ATP? Is my mitochondria, eating it and just becoming super strong? What's happening? Why would I supplement with this and all of a sudden have less inflammation? Would I lower oxidative stress? Would I potentially then sleep better? Which of course that makes everything in my life better. Help us connect the dots there.
Yeah. Well, better sleep would improve your oxidative load. It would include your inflammation.
That's right.
For sure. So this is where we land on the boss theory, right? So I'm going to get a little bit geeky. I have a fun analogy at the end of my geekiness. And so we know from peer-reviewed published research, by the way, BOSS stands for buffering oxidative stress system.
Got it.
We see this molecule as a system, not just like another kind of molecule you throw in the body. We know from peer-reviewed published research that this ESS60 molecule gets into the mitochondria. We also know from way back in the 90s that this molecule can hold up to 6 negatively charged particles on the exterior of the cage. And here's what that looks like. Quick refresh. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of every cell. There's between 50 and 5,000 mitochondria in every cell in our body, except for blood cells, which have 0, and brain and neurons, which have 2 million. I always find it amazing how much energy our nervous system uses relative to our other systems.
That's
right?
a lot.
You're talking about training, right? And your muscles like, we're working so hard, and you don't realize behind the scenes, 2 million energy sources, power plants in every cell versus 50 to 5,000 in a brain or any aspect, right? In a muscle or whatever. So it's amazing how much energy it uses. Like every power source, there is a negative byproduct. You think about your car going down the road, it's got exhaust. You think about a power plant, it's got a smokestack with smoke. In the case of mitochondria, it's reactive oxygen species. Now I picture these like little bumper cars, right? If they're left to their own devices, they just run around the body and everything they smack into, they cause oxidative stress, oxidative damage, rust, right? And that's bad, right? Like that's not good. And like so many biological systems in our body, there is a way to manage those. And how it manages it, internal to the mitochondria, are the 2 key antioxidants, glutathione and melatonin. Now, I like to pause here because melatonin is the sleep hormone, right? This key antioxidant in the mitochondria. Our most consistent testimonial involves sleep. So there's good parallels here. So those glutathione and melatonin are bonding to those reactive oxygen species so they don't run around and do any damage. Great. But what happens when we stress a mitochondria? First, how do we stress a mitochondria? I like to point out, if you're alive in modern society, you have stressed mitochondria, right? Yep. Whether it's EMF radiation from your phone, off of your computer, too much sunlight, drinking, smoking, smog, stressful conversations, stressful driving, like you have stressed mitochondria if you're alive in modern society. And that's when the mitochondria start producing more reactive oxygen species than can be managed internally. And that's if they're left to their own devices, they run around and cause that oxidative stress, that oxidative damage. And that's where we think the ESS60 molecule comes in. Again, from peer-reviewed published research, we know it's in the mitochondria, and we believe it holds on to up to 6 of these negatively charged particles, these bumper cars, so they can't run around and do damage. And then when that mitochondria can replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, then it can manage those reactive oxygen species appropriately. And that's why we say that this ESS60 molecule is the boss, a buffering oxidative stress system. So I have a fun analogy. I don't know if you agree. I feel like all biological analogies should start with Mardi Gras.
I've not heard that. Go ahead. Explain.
A lot of biology happens at Mardi Gras, so why not?
It does.
So it's the end of Mardi Gras, and you have these drunk reactive oxygen species on Bourbon Street causing these bumper cars, spray painting stuff, smashing windows, and you have the New Orleans Police Department, the glutathione and the melatonin coming onto Bourbon Street, handcuffing themselves to those reactive oxygen species and getting them off of Bourbon Street. But what does the New Orleans Police Department do when they get overwhelmed? They take those reactive oxygen species and they stick them in a paddy wagon. They attach them to the exterior of the ESS60 molecule so they can't run around like little bumper cars and cause damage. And then when the New Orleans Police Department can replenish the glutathione, replenish the melatonin, then they can handcuff themselves to those reactive oxygen species and get them off of Bourbon Street. So the summary is, we believe we're reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria. And if you reduce the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, you should have systemic benefits. You should have what we have, which are head-to-toe testimonials.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's why you can say that somebody said, hey, my knee feels better. I am sleeping better. I have more energy. This improves my athletic performance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because we're really fundamentally going to the core of the cell and affecting change there. Okay. So I'm tracking with you there. Now, how is this molecule delivered?
Okay, because you just mentioned athletic performance, and I think there's a really, really kind of cool story that goes in there, and that supports really the boss theory. So we have a guy that we work with, a fan of the product. He's now a good friend. His name is Anthony Kunkel. He's a 2-time U.S. ultra running champion. So he won a U.S. championship at 50 miles and a U.S. championship at 100K. And my conversation with him, the first conversation with him was pretty fantastic, because he was like, hey, Chris, I was trying your product, was taking 1 serving, and I didn't really notice anything. And then I joke, like all good biohackers, he tripled the serving. By the way, don't triple everything. There's lots of things you should never triple. But in this case, it's fine. And he said, when I tripled the serving, I was blown away. I believe that your product could be the difference between somebody having running as a hobby and running as a career. Wow. He went on to say, I don't think your product speeds exercise recovery. I believe it prevents damage in the first place. And we didn't even really have the boss theory in place yet. So his justification was, because on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, which is a phrase you may never hear again, right? But on the last 5 miles of a 50-mile run, where strength and stability used to be a problem, they're no longer a problem. Right? So this goes with, hey, if anybody's stressing their mitochondria, it's this crazy cat named Anthony Kunkel who's running 50 miles in one stretch. And if he's not recovering, he's actually there's more strength and stability towards the end of the run. That just mirrors this concept of reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, that is quite remarkable. Certainly, you've got my full attention here. And look, you've already alluded to this. We all have stress. There is environmental stress. There's psychological stress. There's emotional stress. There's cultural stress. There's the stress from your workouts. There's just a lot of stress here. And anything we can do to reduce that is going to have this compounding effect towards our longevity, our health, and all that fun stuff. All right. Now, just back to the question then, do I have to inject this? Is it a horrible concoction? Do I lay in a bed and do I come to your facility? How am I getting this ESS60 into my cellular
into your
powerhouses there.
system.
That's right.
Well, the nice thing is it's really our basic product is a high quality extra virgin olive oil with as much of the ESS60 molecule as we can get to dissolve in it. And so the dosing is 1 teaspoon. So Anthony started at 1 teaspoon. He tripled it. So 1 tablespoon. He actually, I think, just drinks it out of the bottle straight away. It is a high quality extra virgin olive oil, so it will leave a peppery flavor at the back of your throat. And some people are like, oh, it's burning my throat. Is it rancid? No, the opposite. That's actually a sign of a high quality, high polyphenol rich olive oil is that peppery flavor. In fact, you may have been to a chain Italian restaurant where they'll pour oil in a plate for you to dip your bread in, and then they crack pepper in it. And the reason they're cracking pepper is to give you the experience of a more expensive olive oil with the cheap olive oil that they just poured on your plate. So that is the whole experience, that peppery flavor, and 1 teaspoon a day. And again, remember, now this is it's kind of hard to stress the importance of this. Remember, the most consistent testimonial, take it in the morning, report mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. I've been asking now for 5 years, is there anything you're aware of that you could take in the morning and positively impact sleep at night? Certainly, if you exercise in the morning, you'll sleep better that night. If you wake up and get some exposure to the sun and get your circadian rhythm in line with the rising and falling of the sun, absolutely sleep better that night. But to take something in the morning and have a positive impact on sleep, that is, again, further support that we're really having a positive impact on this mitochondria, that we're really supporting the body's natural processes for managing oxidative stress at the level of the mitochondria.
Okay. I love it. All right. So I'm going to get all these benefits. Is it fair to say that I will be increasing my lifespan by using this product? I mean, I know you can't make that claim from a product, but as a scientist, as a consumer, might I realistically expect to extend my life beyond, based on this? Those of you in podcast land, he's looking at me like, I don't know if I can answer that question legally.
Oh, I can answer it.
Let's have it. Yeah.
No. Yeah. So let's be realistic. In this original study, and let me actually talk about that because there's another piece of the study. My director of research came to me one day and he said that this paper could have been 5 separate papers. Like, they just did so much really fantastic research in it. They injected them with an oxidative agent that attacks the liver. Only the ones given ESS60 and olive oil showed significant recovery in the livers when they dissected the rats. So that was one piece. Another piece is a typical Wistar rat lives out to 32 months and has a known amount of tumor mass in its body. The longer it lives, the more tumor mass it has in its body. Even though the ESS60 rats lived out to 62 months, again, 90% longer, none of them had any tumors. Now, I've told that story to people, and they'll share, they're like, oh, cure for cancer. And I'm like, no. And then I follow that with another, no. There's a big difference between dealing with a cancer that has metastasized and potentially being a cancer preventative. We know things as simple as good nutrition, good exercise, good sleep are cancer preventatives. I will share, and this is a Petri dish study, so it is the lowest level of study, but it is pretty profound. In a Petri dish, they took cancer cells and healthy cells and introduced an anti-cancer agent, right? So basically a poison. They're trying to poison the cancer cells before the healthy cells. In the presence of the ESS60 molecule, there was increased efficacy against the cancer cells and protective effects for the healthy cells. So basically, in the presence of ESS60, more cancer cells died and less healthy cells died. Now, why might this be? I think this goes back to that boss theory and this understanding we have that cancer uses a different energy source. Their mitochondria use a different energy source than healthy cells. So there's some mechanism that can explain that at the level of the boss theory. So I think that's pretty good. So let's note, Wistar rats prone to cancer. Wistar rats given ESS60 didn't get cancer, lived 90% longer, right? So you're talking about a genetically modified rat and really this ESS60 molecule undoing the damage of that genetic modification, right? So that's a very specific. Do I think humans are going to live 90% longer just by taking our product? I don't think that's the case. Now, if it was, it would be pretty fantastic,
That would
right?
be
So
pretty
if the
fantastic.
average,
Yes.
if
I
the
think your
average
market
human
would,
lives,
your market capitalization would go up just a tad,
yeah.
right?
So if the average human lives 90% longer, the average human would live to about 152.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're like me, when you hear that number, you're like, oh, oldest human. No, bell curve around
Average.
152, people
Yeah.
well into 200s.
Mm.
So that would be a fantastic result. I really think this is about addressing the reactive oxygen species, which has some downstream impact on inflammation. So not making any claims regarding inflammation. We can just say that at least inflammation due to exercise, right? And that's where this real benefit. If you were to ask me, hey, I want to get across this longevity escape velocity finish line, should I start with your product? I would say no. You should start with good exercise,
Right on.
good nutrition, good sleep, and all of that. Frankly, you start on mindset. Like have the mindset that you're going to get to 120 or whatever the number is, and then back from there. What do I have to do as a human who is subject to the biology of a human? Or what do I have to do to get to that point? I will say mindset is so important. And there are people who are in such, with autoimmune diseases and things that are so rough on their bodies that they actually struggle getting the mindset right. We understand that there are physiological processes that negatively impact how you think, right? And how positive or negatively you think. And so I do think there can be a role for MyVital C in having an impact there. Because remember, there's 2 million mitochondria in every brain cell.
Yeah.
So you should have an outsized impact. It's why our most consistent testimonial is focus and energy during the day, better sleep at night. All of this is actually brain related, right? Like none of that is like, oh, my muscles are stronger, although there are some testimonials and thoughts about that. But our most consistent testimonial is there. I'll share. It was interesting. I just recorded a podcast before this, and a lady had been trying the product for a week and a half. She's like, I don't know if I've noticed much. And I said, have you been dreaming? And she was like, oh, yeah, I have. Like, I've been like, and I'm remembering my dreams. Like, we all dream every night. Like,
Yeah.
the science is clear. But to remember them is a different step. And what I like about that kind of testimonial is very binary, right? She wasn't saying, oh, my dreams were better or more vivid or whatever. She was saying, no, I used to not remember my dreams. Now I remember my dreams. I think what's going on in that case is sleep is multiple cycles of REM sleep, NREM sleep, deep sleep, right? About 90-minute cycles. Hopefully you're getting 5 to 6 a night. And in my mind, there's this kind of checklist for each cycle, which is, I got to take care of the mitochondria. I've got to repair some muscle, maybe repair a little liver over here. I got to cement knowledge, right? If you don't get sleep, if you're studying and you're not getting 8 hours of sleep, you are wasting your time. Not totally, right? Obviously, some stuff sticks, but it's like get the sleep. If you're trying to learn how to do something, some muscle memory, right? Throw a baseball, hit a bat, jump on the pickleball craze, right? If you're trying to do that, getting a good night's sleep helps cement those muscle memories into place. Now, if the first thing is mitochondria and the mitochondria is already supported by the ESS60 molecule, then you can just, that's already done. Now I can spend more time on other things. And I think that's what's driving better sleep and also dreams, right? So let's deal with the emotions that happens during REM sleep, that happens while you're dreaming, which is during REM sleep. And frankly, this week has been 2 conversations with people going like, oh yeah, I am dreaming. I wasn't before.
Interesting. Not recalling them. Yeah, no, I got you. All right. Well, this is very interesting, obviously, but I'm kind of wondering, is there any fear around big pharma trying to muscle in here, or is this, I don't know, can you patent a molecule? I mean, is this your molecule? Is this molecule open source? Could I build a carbon 60 modulator and bring the heat of the sun here into my office? And I mean, what's the landscape there? Because obviously we know that anytime there's like a big preventative medicine, heck, even just normal healthy eating and healthy moving just seems to be anti-big food, anti-big pharma, anti-medical these days, the way the system's set up. Is there a push for big pharma to move into this space, or is this not their game? They're not really in the prevention game.
Well, a couple of things, right? I think if they could get their hands on it and there was any intellectual property capabilities, then we
Right.
would be having kind of different kinds of conversations. The reality of this exists, it was discovered in 1985, right? They really started working with us on a regular basis in 1991. That's when our lab started providing it to scientists around the world. And they were doing all sorts of experiments. Not that many were health focused because it could hold up to 6 negatively charged particles. They kind of thought of it as an antioxidant right away, but a lot of the research was into inks, batteries, tires, and photocells. But enough was in that the research was kind of laid out, and there is no opportunity for intellectual property, for patents related to this.
Got it.
So that tends to keep big pharma out of it. The counter side is big pharma doesn't like it, so they start to come in and cause problems and wreak havoc on the industry, maybe kind of buy out whatever is available. We haven't experienced that. The reality is not that many people have heard of this. This is one of the reasons I'm coming on your podcast. I go on so many podcasts to share this science, and we might bump into some, I don't know, pushback at some point. That just hasn't happened yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Right on. Well, let me ask you this then. Since you're out there on the cutting edge, you now self-identify as a biohacker. It seems like to your point, the whole idea that there's, every 3 months information doubles. What's around the corner? What are you excited about in the next 12 to 24 months? What do you see out there in the future that maybe those of us that aren't biohackers, us lay people, if you will, might be surprised to hear or interested to learn?
Yeah, I know that. So Dr. David Sinclair wrote a book called Lifespan: Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, which is amazing. And his lab is doing some pretty amazing stuff and like he coined the phrase the information theory of aging, which is like effectively our DNA sits in our body kind of like a compact disc. Well, we're gonna have to come up with something new soon, right? Because the next generation isn't
Not
going
going
to
to catch that. That's right. Yeah. This generation gets it.
Yes.
We got that.
So you've got the compact disc and it just gets stretched and degraded. And we've all had a compact disc that's, skips or whatever. And so as it's reproducing, as the cell is reproducing, it's showing some damage as it reproduces. And if we could figure out a way to polish this CD, then we would be much better. I mean, he offers the probably one of the most compelling arguments, I think, at a get back to the basics, which is I can take any one of your cells, Kevin, and I can make a baby Kevin. Like any one of your cells. And I can make, so the information to be a baby Kevin is in every cell in your body.
Yeah.
So like it just kind of makes sense. That may not be easy, but there should be some way that we could roll back the clock using the information that is available in every cell in your body. I think that's the most compelling. And so I know that he's working on stuff. They actually pinched the nerve, the optic nerve of some mice, and then we're using one of their supplements, I think, and actually the optic nerve regrew. Just like we used to have the concept that brain cells, you were fixed, right? You're born with brain cells and whatever they were. And we've learned now there actually is neurogenesis, that the brain cells do come online. Same thing with the optic nerve. It's very hard to repair, and they're doing some amazing stuff with that. And they're turning genes on and making rats that are young look old and act old. So like gray hairs, and they can't run as far. And then they're taking old rats and manipulating their genes, and now they're younger. So there's a lot of things that are going on. Ultimately, I'm excited about this longevity, escape velocity, and everything that's new. Part of me is like, even my own product, maybe not necessary in 5 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like people will continue to consume stuff, and you want to consume smart stuff. And I do think our stuff is smart, but from the perspective of, addressing what we believe we're addressing, there's probably going to be other technologies, maybe as quickly as 5 years. So I'm excited about that.
Crazy. Okay. So those of us in our 50s, 60s, 70s, we've got grown kids, maybe even grandkids. What generation's going to be the first to see a human be 200 years old? Is it my grandkids? Is it my great grandkids, or is it my kids? Like, for example, my kids are 23 and 28, for example.
Well, I'm hopeful it's you and I.
Come on. All right. There we go. All this healthy living is going to pay off, man. It hit 200.
And again, remember, like the same way that I described eking across that finish line, at my target age, do whatever you have to eke across that longevity escape velocity finish line, right? Like, so do all the smart things so that you can live longer, because every day may push you in on the right side of that finish line. I think our kids are going to see 200 like easy.
Yeah.
Like, I just think they're going to, even though so much is going wrong, like with devices, and AI is super disruptive, right? Like who knows what's going to happen there. I'm more optimistic. I always tend to be optimistic, but yeah, I think it's our kids.
Wow. Okay. That's fascinating. And it's very hopeful as well. Like you said, you're an optimist. I am as well. All right. Well, I guess the $1 million question here is Lamborghini, yes or no? You got one?
Oh, not yet.
Not yet.
It kind of changed.
That kind of shifted a little bit from the 14-year-old you to the current Chris. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because the Lamborghini Countach, I have a Tesla. I love my Tesla. Elon Musk started with the Roadster, said there was going to be a Roadster. I'm not sure so I kind of had shifted to the Roadster, which also gave me some breathing room to get, to continue to grow the business and to get there. So I'm on my way, but now the dream car I think is not going to happen, specifically the Roadster. So now I haven't even recalibrated, right? Like, have I gone back to a Lamborghini or whatever? But it's still on my radar, and I'm fully intend to have one at some point.
At some point. Well, you got hundreds of years to work on it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? There you go.
Right?
All right.
Maybe I'll have hundreds of them, like not sequentially.
Sure.
I'll be
a whole fleet,
sequential supercar owner. Yeah.
Right on. All right. Well, Chris, as we're wrapping up here, people that want to connect with you definitely want to check out the My Vital C. Where are we going to send people? Tell people where you want to go.
I made a URL for your audience, and I want to walk people through for what they can find there. So the URL is My Vital C, right? C as in carbon, myvitalc.com/silver edge. When you go there, there's a $30 coupon. That coupon is good for the specials on that page. And we did some really as deep as 40% discount specials on that page. One thing is I did a longevity summit. I interviewed 57 experts in longevity, including like Ben Greenfield, Stephen Gundry, Dave Asprey, Dr. Tom O'Brien, who wrote the Autoimmune Fix. And I asked them for tips and tricks. So I compiled like the 18 most popular biohacking tips and tricks. That is available for free at that link. We just need your name and email. So take advantage of that. As you scroll down the page, we really have an offer of like 2, 3, and 6. One thing that we kind of didn't cover is what does it map out if you were to start taking My Vital C? We think of it as like a 3-month process that has parallels with our most consistent testimonial of people taking in the morning, reporting mental focus and energy during the day, and then better sleep that night. So month 1 really is focus and energy. We got a testimonial from one of our influencers. She took the product in the morning. When she recorded the video that night, she pointed out that she didn't finish her cup of coffee. That's a big deal if you're a coffee drinker. I used to be a 2 to 3 cup of coffee per day person. I'm now more of a 1 cup per day. Actually, it's mostly the ritual. So that's kind of focus and energy month 1. Month 2 is sleep. Now, I really believe sleep is happening in month 1, but it can be just like I had the conversation earlier. She was like, oh, I didn't really notice anything. How about your dreams? Oh, so not only is she dreaming, but if she were to really assess her sleep quality, she would probably realize that it's better because you get a little bit more or less sleep every day, right? So you constantly wake up or regularly wake up, oh, I didn't get that much sleep. I don't feel as good, right? So that makes it harder to nail down as My Vital C is the thing that supported this. And I will share my business coach, the way he puts it is, for 50 years, he needed an alarm clock to wake up. When he's taking the product, he wakes up before the alarm clock. And, he's doing late night mixers, late night dinners. None of that matters, except if he doesn't get the product for about 10 days, then he starts to need the alarm clock again. So deep sleep on month 2. And month 3, when you're thinking about reducing the negative impact of stressed mitochondria, then you should have systemic benefits. And frankly, we have testimonials that are so powerful and disease-related that we can't share. The FDA requires us to do a lot more research before we can do that. What I will share is my father-in-law was walking with a cane. He stopped needing the cane at about the 3-month point and started walking without the cane. So he's walking further. Of course, that caused weight loss. That's that kind of systemic benefit that we see in month 3. Yeah. So I share that because we have a 2, 3, and a 6 bottle. The biggest discount, 40%, is on 6 bottles. And the logic there is, hey, it's a 3-month experience. Buy the 6, you can have 3 for yourself, maybe give 3 to somebody else, or you could be selfish like I would be. I would just keep all 6. Also, there is an additional discount on subscription. You can cancel at any time. So even if you just wanted to try one batch, go ahead and go on subscription. Our customer service team has 1,000 5-star reviews on Google. They're not trained to talk you out of canceling your subscription. They're trained to help you, and they do a great job. It's just most people do stay on subscription. A little bit farther down, what's the point of feeling good inside if you're not looking great on the outside? We actually have a Skin Reduo set. It's a super cool box. I'm showing it. If you're listening to the podcast, it's 2 bottles. One is a peptide that's water soluble. One is oil soluble. I do every day 2 squirts of our peptide called UTH29, which stands for Youth 29, and then 2 drops per squirt. So 4 drops. I'm activate it right in my hand, put that on. So that is the special there. Also 40% on the 6 bottles. And then finally, as you go down the page, I have my book. It's called Live Longer and Better. Your journey to living longer and better has never been more achievable than today. It is available on Amazon for $19.99. On the same thing on your link. For $10 extra, I will autograph that for you. 100% of that $10 fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad. You may remember an amazing movie called The Sound of Freedom about a horrible topic, which is child exploitation. That movie is about Operation Underground Railroad, who is working to get child exploitation off of our planet. The sooner the better. So 100% of that signature fee goes to Operation Underground Railroad.
On. Love that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Folks, here's the deal. I'm going to put that link into the show notes. You guys can find that in the app that you're listening to this on, or head over to our website. I will also throw info. I'll throw the links to the website. I'll throw the links to, of course, the podcast. Chris got a great podcast called Live Beyond the Norms. Links to all his socials, all that fun stuff. You guys can find that there. Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, to explain to us and nerd out a little bit, geek out, have some fun, but also just for your passion for the work that you're doing. It's clear that you are driven. You're a man on a mission. I absolutely love it, and just encourage you to keep up the great work, man.
Thank you so much, Kevin. This was awesome.
Okay, that's our show for today, folks. If you are over 50 and feel frustrated or stuck and you want a clear plan, I invite you to book a free clarity call with me. You guys can find a link to learn more in the show notes for this episode, and you can find that on whatever app you're listening to this podcast on, or head over to silveredgefitness.com/421. As we wrap up our time together today, you can show your support for this show in 2 critically important ways. The first is to tell a friend about this podcast and encourage them to give it a listen. The second is for you YouTube folks to click the like and subscribe buttons. For you podcast folks to please consider giving this podcast a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on, and be sure to subscribe and follow so you don't miss any future episodes. I really appreciate you spending your time with me today, and until next time, stay strong.